Disruptive faith produces mixed audiences. You have to realize that if you start to walk in a disruptive faith, people gonna come just to listen. And that's what Jesus had. People were coming just to see what was going on. There's gonna be. I'm so excited today. Some of y'all are about to start doing some things that people just gonna show up to see if it's true. All right, y'all ain't getting stirred up enough. I said, God is about to start doing things in your life that people gonna show up just to see if it's true.
Good morning and happy Thursday, Revealing Truth Ministries family and friends. Welcome to this Thursday morning Deeper Dive Live. We are live in the building with the livest live audience in all of Tampa. Hey, yes, and we want to welcome you here to the chat. Welcome you to the stream. Thank you for being here with us. Go ahead and let us know that you're with us. Drop a good morning or something in the chat. We appreciate this time that we get to spend together. You know, the Deeper Dive gives us the opportunity to attend to the things that God has said to us. We've determined to be people who are most blessed. Man, what a special moment it is. Every day special in the life of a believer, right? But right here in the studio, we have our senior pastor, Pastor Brian, is in the building with us for the Deeper Dive. Mr. Change Your Life is with us today. Yeah. And next to him, we have the people's pastor.
Come through with the come through.
Pastor Gamage is in the building.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We appreciate him being here with us as well. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful to have you two with us this morning for the Deeper Dive.
I'm excited.
You know, in light of Sunday's message and the the point that is just being repeated and drilled into us, the power of a we have a dynamic duo with us today.
We are here.
Yeah. It's awesome. So, I reflecting back on Sunday's message and thinking about this conversation, I went back and read Luke 5, and and I'm picturing those four brothers carrying their friend on this mat, the sleeping mat, in order to get him to Jesus. And it's interesting. I love the Bible, right? And I love how it's written. It's in Mark 2. It's all Mark chapter 2. And Mark's quick to the point, right? But Luke is a writer, and I think he has some style with his writing, right? So he writes this story in a way that I think he just leaves so much to our imagination. We don't get the pre-conversation, right? It's just, hey, four men got their friend on the mat. They're trying to see Jesus. Not enough room to make it through the door, so they decide to take him on the roof. And I just wonder what it was like. What conversation took place in order to get him. To get him there, right?
No, that's a good thing, because I obviously, I think we all just think about our own lives, right? And think about moments where we needed somebody. And I think the first thing is like the trepidation, like the vulnerability,
right?
The like, you just really like, okay, am I really prepared to be open right now? I think that's the first conversation everybody has. That clearly had to be the thoughts that preceded before he was like, yo, I know where y'all are headed. I imagine they have to all be headed in the same direction. Right. In some way. Right. Because to get four people to change direction, that's kind of difficult. So I would imagine that they had pretty clear schedules, or either they were all saying we're going to be together today. In some way they had already formed like, either they were all gonna their four was already gonna go, or they were already gonna spend time together that day. I'm just thinking about like my we and how we could all end up in a moment like that.
Right.
And it really would take like
there's some things we already agreed on. Right.
Like, we had to agree on some stuff.
We had to agree on some stuff before motion started.
Right. So when you were talking though, it made me reflect back on moments when I needed somebody, and the valuable thing is in what isn't said. Like there have been moments in my life where I needed someone, and if I had to explain, like you've had the moments where you need somebody, the next person that's available, you got to run through why. You got to run through the whole situation. And really, you don't want to do that.
I love how you said that, though. There are moments where I need someone, and I don't even have the words to express what it is. But your presence in being there gives me enough assurity to say, whatever we about to do,
I'm down.
I'm down.
Listen, I had, I actually had this morning had a ministry conversation with somebody, and just pouring like my heart out for why this, I feel, is one of the things that our generation has been asked to bring to the church of this generation, is because that vulnerability, one of the things that I believe vulnerability is a gateway to greatness. I believe that often what we describe or label as vulnerable is actually the passageway to greater.
That's good.
Right? Like, I believe that, I said this like maybe a month ago, that truth be told, faith makes you vulnerable, right? Faith makes you humble. It like when you're walking in absolute faith, you should feel vulnerable, because now my life is not my own, right? I have submitted it. So I think we've turned that term negative when honestly it shouldn't be negative. But the point what I was saying is, it's like, man, I was talking to him this morning, and I was like, no, like we should be far more transparent. And some of the things that I was saying is like, because if we're thinking about from our Savior's perspective, like he's like, man, if you thought about adultery, you've committed adultery. Pretty much to say, like, I know a lot of people are like, oh man, like that's jarring, but I always see the life that the Bible is trying to give me. And what the life I see out of that is like, hey man, they may have did it, and you're trying to judge them for the outside of their cup, but Jesus cares about the inside of your cup. And so it's like, so to Jesus, you're just as guilty as they are. So why am I passing judgment? Because you did what I didn't act out on.
Right.
Like, honestly, we both need saving.
Correct.
Like if my thoughts were out here if my thoughts were as transparent as your actions, I would have nothing to hold against you.
Good.
Right. And so I think once we start thinking about that from that perspective, I think you understand that really, what am I really like? Why do I care?
Yeah.
Like it's like we love to present this pretense, but I think that the essence of our faith is for us to really understand from our thought life that, man, I'm really in need of a savior. The only difference between me and them is I didn't act out on it, right? And some of the times, the only difference between a convicted killer and you is you didn't have the courage to carry it out.
Say that.
Or the resources. Like that's the only difference. So like it's like sometimes when you really start to realize that, it should humble you.
Right.
And I think that the more we humble ourselves, the more open we'll become with one another, understanding that we're far more closely united than what we realize. But I think that's the job of our generation. And I was sharing to this person, right, that I was talking to this morning, I was telling them, they were like, man, I asked them, I said, man, what do you need? And they were like, well, I mean, I could tell, just the trepidation. And I was being legit. And I told them, I said, listen, it doesn't matter what you say. I'm only going to do what's in my heart. But if you give me something to believe for, I have something to believe for.
On,
I was like, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. Just say it. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I was just trying to say it doesn't matter. And as I was getting more amped and amped, I was just sharing him some of my thoughts. These are some of the thoughts I've had. Now you're like, oh man, Pastor Brian. I was like, no, man, I get what you're saying. I said, but I thank God for his grace and his mercy and his temperance and his, I was listening to, Minister Ken Terry last night too, and self-control, like in the fact that, man, the Spirit of God has been stirred up in me to where self-control, man, I exercise it every day. I have to check my emotions. I just thank God that I got into a place in my life where I can recognize his voice so keenly that it doesn't take me as long to respond. And that's maybe the only difference, right? Because we have the same spirit. I just would say, like, man, like I've spent a lot more time submitting to that voice quicker and faster, but I believe we'll all get on the same pace. But the truth of the matter is, to say that my thoughts are radically better than yours is just not true.
Not true.
Like,
Pastor, you said, even with connecting it to the guys that were carrying him on the way, you mentioned to the guy that you were talking to, just tell me what you need. Like, what is it that you need?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of those guys, the man on the cot, like him, the guys who are carrying him. Bro, what do you need? Don't tell me what you need as if I can provide it. Tell me what it is that you need.
And that's the thing. That's the thing that's awesome about that, right? Because if only one of them signed up, it still couldn't be done.
No. Nope.
And so it's like, even if you're telling me, it's going to take all of us.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you tell me what you need, maybe I can be a part of getting all of us to join in. Like you might say something that I know a few people that can get it together.
Yep.
Like, you know what I'm saying? But if you just leave it to imagination, then
can't do nothing with that.
You know, like, man, I've also heard that Jesus can send the word, right? What if you would have said that? So, hey, man, we'll drop the request, right? And like, you stay here, I'll be back. I'll see if we can pull that off, right? You know what I'm saying? So, it's like, I've heard of this tale of the Roman soldier, right? You know, like the centurion soldier, and I heard that. I heard in highways and hedges that you can send the word.
So you stay here.
You stay here.
Right.
Meanwhile, it's like, that ain't it, man. I'm thinking I need that touch. Yeah, you know? And but at the end of the day, what I know is the Bible mentions only what we need so we can believe in Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, if we needed to know what was said so that we could believe in Jesus, it would have been put there.
Yeah.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And so it's left out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's left out because it's not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
And that just makes me bring us to this point is like, how many conversations are we overthinking that aren't even necessary to believe?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how many things are we just being stagnant in because we're overthinking it, we're over processing it, and it's not even necessary to believe.
Matter.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like, it won't even be remembered.
Yeah.
It won't even be recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Like this right here that you have been sitting stagnant in, this ask that's on your heart to bring to somebody else that you're wondering how they're going to take it, how they're going to receive it, but I need their help. They're not even going to remember what you asked for.
Nope.
But you're now sitting stagnant over what you think might be a vulnerable moment that exposes you.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing. It's not even going to be recorded.
Yeah.
It's not even going to be remembered. I don't remember what someone asked me for you. I don't remember. Like, you know, and I think I mentioned this on Sunday. Sometimes, you know, when people come and they repent and you be like, man, I don't know what you're talking about. No, you don't have to remind them. Like, it might be better just not to tell them. You might mention something that they didn't even like who cares? Like, and I'm saying this because some people are like, don't you want to know? I like sometimes I don't want people to know what I'm thinking. Like it wasn't good.
Yeah.
Like
let's just get to the
but I got
point.
over it.
Yeah.
I love that. It wasn't good, but I got over it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and man,
that's so good.
I love when brothers and sisters dwell together in unity. I still remember I was having a conversation with a couple brothers like 10 years, this is over 10 years ago. And they were talking about, man, we need to be on the same page. We need to be on the same page. That's something that's just thrown up. We need to be on the same page. And I was like, man, I said, you know, we'll be on the same page. And they were like, when? I was like, when our thoughts are as transparent as our actions.
Right. That's good.
That's when we'll be on the same page.
Yeah.
But we all know that ain't good for us right now.
That's good too. That's the truth too. Knowing when, but it's
that's self-control.
What you're asking for, Because I realized
realized
we were sitting there, we got to be on the same page. We got to be on the same page.
Yeah.
And I realized, like, you know, what we're actually asking each other to do. We're asking each other for us once and for all for our thoughts to be just as transparent as our actions.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, right now, we're not even ready for that.
Nope.
But I believe that is where God is growing us to a place where with one another, we can be just as transparent in thought as we are in action.
So good.
That our minds can be so renewed that our thoughts aren't even dangerous or deceptive or bad. Like I believe that's where God is growing us to, so that we can truly dwell together in unity.
Yes.
Like we're trying to dwell together based upon the outside of the cup, but unity is formed from the inside of the cup. Right? All of us are different on the outside.
Yeah, man.
But as a body of Christ, we are together on the inside. The spirit that connects us is indwelling.
Yeah.
And so the inside of us is what is matched up, not the outside. And
Yeah.
God is constantly asking us, don't look at the outside.
Yep.
Don't look at the outside. Man looks upon the flesh, but I look upon the heart.
Right.
And I tell people all the time, man, like that's where we're going. That's where we're growing. And it takes a personal journey for everybody. Like, get your thoughts together, because one day we're going to be to a place
That's
where
good.
our thoughts and our actions are going to be transparently the same.
It's beautiful.
Right?
There are two things that I think about as I was listening to you. One, or both of them lead to action, and both of them lead to disruptive faith. One, when we are willing to get in that vulnerable spot, it disrupts the indecision and the inactivity.
Yep.
When I just decide to settle, and be vulnerable.
Yep.
It disrupts me hiding.
Yep.
Or keeping my, my thoughts silent. Right. And then the other one is just taking action. When I just decide to take action, that disrupts the former pattern of my life. I mean, this guy, he's paralyzed.
Mm-hmm.
How long has he been paralyzed? We don't know, but we know that him and his 4 friends deciding to take action it disrupts whatever activity was happening prior. Right. So I do see how there's great benefit in trusting God in our vulnerability, and then just making a decision to take action that disrupts
our
patterns.
Say this too, right? This is something that we all know. Hurt people hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
And understand that I know there's a lot of people, they just say this, right? Man, you just got to be careful who you say stuff to. My question is, did a hurt person tell you that?
Right. Yeah.
I was taught that you investigate before you invest.
Mm-hmm.
Did a hurt person tell you that? If a hurt person tell you that, you need to investigate before you invest your life into that opinion.
Don't subscribe to that.
Like you just gotta this and you just gotta that. Or I could submit it to God and trust him to trust what I can't see. Which is the heart of a man. My job is simple, to love him. And every once in a while I would have to remind some people, like I have to tell them, I was like, what makes my job complicated as a pastor? And I would say what makes the job of any believer complicated when you're trying to figure out who qualifies for the love. That's the only thing that complicates our journey is when you're trying to figure out who qualifies. Once you realize that all qualifies, being a Christian, being a pastor becomes so elementarily easy. You just have to remind people around you every once in a while, because then they'll try to get you, the audience will try to get you to be like, do you know what they did? Like, well, do you know what my job is?
That's
like,
right.
I know what they did, but do you know my job? Right. My job only becomes difficult when I'm trying to figure out who qualifies. Like then our conversations, then it just leads into so much heaviness, because everyone's trying to figure out who qualified, being unqualified. Right? You was unqualified. The Bible tells us we love because we were first loved. Like that lets me know it's not based on anything that I do it. Right. And so you gotta ask people, man, like, man, at the end of the day, you're just making it hard to live. And I just want to help people find the things that make it hard to live. We were talking about Tuesday about what's a tradition. That's a traditional thought.
Right.
A traditional thought is, man, you just got to watch who you tell stuff to. Like, man, let me tell you something, man.
Right.
You obviously have never been desperate enough.
Right.
Like you're a leak.
You know what I'm saying?
If you need it, you're a leak.
Let me tell you something, man. Like when you become desperate enough, like you just be like, man, I'm just gonna toss it out there. Like, if it's cold, it's cold. Like if it's not, it's not. We'll just move on. But like you just not no more. You know what I'm saying? I know I gave an example the other day where I was just saying, like, man, I asked the guy, like, man, that your coat matches my outfit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you just get to a point in your life where you're so free that you're like, man, I'm just not gonna do that. I'm not gonna make the yoke heavy that God designed light. It says my yoke is easy, my burdens are light. And so it's like, what am I doing to make it heavy? Right. Cast off every weight. Right. Like cast it off. We have to take it off. Like, what are you taking off today that's weighing you down? And I'm gonna tell you the thought that you can't tell everybody everything, that now you have to open up an investigation of who qualifies. Well, what are your criteria for who qualifies? Now there's more stuff you have to remember. Right. Then how does someone stay qualified? Right. Like, you know what I'm saying? Listen, let me tell you something. I think everybody in this room and everybody listening at some point in their life has told somebody a secret and someone told their secret. Are you still alive?
Come through.
We're still here.
Okay, come so through. You can get over it.
Yeah.
It's so, speaking of that vulnerable piece, like that's it right there. I would tell individuals, Pastor Lamar, one of the greatest weapons, because we have to remember there's also in the audience, there's an enemy, there's somebody who's working against you at all points. I would tell people often, the greatest weapon that the enemy has against you is the secret that you're trying to hold on to.
Right.
Because as long as it's in there, then he gets to attack you with condemnation.
Yeah.
Now you're not letting it out. So he's attacking you, and now you're attacking self.
Right.
You're sitting here blaming self. Why did I fall for that again? Why am I going through this again? Why? Because you're holding on to something that you ain't being vulnerable and just letting it out so that you can see who else is with you.
Listen, I've had some incredible conversations with some awesome people as a result of this series. And you know, because it's just getting that many strong people have quit because they didn't have a dependable week.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's just has been in there like, man, you know what? I know I'm strong, but man, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
And so what's amazing is one of the first things that happens when that barrier is broken, and I've had some conversations recently where some barriers have been broken, like, is, man, the healing that immediately takes place when you realize you're not alone.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, and the amazing thing about, you know, just the seat I sit in is I get to have various conversations with various people across various different spectrums, and gives you a nice, like, balancing point. And you do realize that, like, many of the things that we think is so different is just not, you know. You see people doing things and you're like, oh man, they must be X, Y, Z. No, they're not. Oh, these people are failing. They must be this. No, they're not.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, they're all very much so doing the same thing, waking up every day and doing what they think is the best thing to do today.
Yeah.
Like, that is generally what everybody's doing.
Yep.
Like they're kind of all doing the same thing, right? You know, we were all literally woke up today and was like, you know what, I'm gonna give it all I got.
Yep.
You know, some of us quit on that thought sooner than others based upon what we get.
So good,
but in general,
man.
we all kind of wake up the same way. But my simple thing is to say this, is that you realize that what you've been battling alone, you see many people sharing in the same battle. You know, the Bible tells us that, like, what you're facing is not unique to believers all across the world. Like, that it's not unique, but somehow we always want to make our thing unique.
Yeah.
And when you make it unique, you do random things. And it's like, when you make your problem unique, you start doing inconsistent things.
Yep.
Because you're thinking, I have to do something different than it's like, no, man, we're all just pressing forward. Right. We're choosing to focus on what's faithful. Right. You know, me and Pastor Gambish had that conversation. It was probably over a year ago. And I was like, man, you know what, Pastor Gambish, you know what I realized? There's no point in my whole believing life. Now, this is just my believing life, so I can testify for my faith, is that there wasn't a threat that was there.
Correct.
Like, there was always something
that
I could have looked at and been like, man, if that manifests.
Got it.
Like, my whole believing life, there's always been something that if that grows, that could be a problem.
Right.
My whole believing life. So I finally realized that, like, it's His grace. Yes.
Yeah.
It's been keeping me this whole time.
Yeah.
You know, you guys know I'm a big fan of reviewing on mountaintops, not in valleys. Because when you review on the mountaintop, it changes your perspective of when you get into a valley of what's wrong, right? Because you get to the mountaintop and you review from your mountaintop, you realize, like, man, I ain't doing everything right now. Like,
and look at where I'm at.
I got a few things that I need to work on right now. You realize that, man, I got a few threats that if that manifests, that could be a problem. You're on your mountaintop.
Right.
You're like, man. So then
you have more clarity when you evaluate there.
When you evaluate from there, you realize, like, it ain't been me
the whole time.
The whole time. It's been God on my side.
Right.
So that when you get into that valley, you don't get into
that's good.
Self-effort.
You remember
you remember that I was on the mountaintop.
Right.
And I had problems.
Come on.
But it was God. When I was on the mountaintop, I had some threats, but it was God. So now that I'm in the valley, I'm not going to turn to self-effort because it's always been God.
Always.
That's good. That's good.
I'm just going to continue.
Yeah.
That's good.
Right? I think that's a good summary of the pictures that we see of God's people. Even throughout the Bible, we saw them at their high points. We saw them at their low points. And the thing that is consistently, they have to be consistently reminded of, is the thing that's consistent. Like mountain, valley, God was still available.
Come on.
Now, during different times, they chose him sometimes, they didn't choose him sometimes, but he was always there. And I think that when we evaluate from the high place with that clarity, we see the assets. We see God is always available, his grace is always available. And we also can see that, man, God used such and such. God used this person to bring me what I needed. And
there's always a through.
There's always somebody who's is coming through.
Wow.
Yeah.
In every season, there's always a through God's using to remind you of his faithfulness. You know, whether it's through relationship. I mean, some certain things, not even that complicated. You know, Pastor Gamer's sitting next to me. Some mornings,
I want to just unpack that a little too. Right. Here's a thought. Like, we're talking about disruptive faith, and like relationship breaks down the tradition that could be in your faith. Relationship in your faith can break down the traditions in your faith.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm thinking your relationship with Jesus, your relationship with other godly people. I mean, there's so much variety in relationship that it breaks down tradition. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, no.
Like, if I maintain my relationship with Jesus as I'm walking, then the relationship and just the variety of relationship, the freshness of relationship will break down the traditions.
Because it's an exposure thing. It's an exposure thing. Me understanding, and we said it on Tuesday, we all have blind spots. The relationship, the power in that relationship will allow over time for you to point out something. Even though we're at the top of the mountain right now, but because of this proximity, you're able to point out something, and I'm able to take notice of that and be like, "Wow, yeah, absolutely right."
And
like,
I would even ask this question, right? You know, like we know that 4 men carried a paralytic to Jesus. I'm asking you this question, knowing that was relationship, that's community. Whose miracle was it?
Oh, yeah. That's good. I think all of them.
Come on.
Everybody was
everybody,
including us.
Including us.
That's
the power of relationship.
That's the power of relationship.
We all get the win.
That's the value of we.
Listen, there's it's 4, and I know we mentioned this. I can't remember if it was this week or last week. We went. I think it was last week when we talked about like for the benefit.
Yeah.
Like that Paul was like, it's going to be for your benefit. It's going to be for your benefit. And what we don't know is what those 4 men, including the paralytic, did from that moment on. But I guarantee you.
That's right.
It was life-changing.
It was life-changing.
It was definitely disruptive.
There was some experiences that they couldn't get talked out of.
That's right.
That part.
It was there through too. And I think that's
so
the thing about relationships, that your miracle is my miracle. Like, you know, me seeing you walk through it and triumph, it does do something for me. Like, your win is my win. Like, you do help me break down my barriers. You do, like, you do help me. Community does help you break down your traditions. But I'm gonna tell you something that helps it is knowing what your community is believing for. You know, and man, it's just things to celebrate, man. But absolutely, like it is necessary. Like, yeah.
That's so good.
You know, on Sunday, you also got into a conversation. Part of the message on Sunday touched on God's plan, right? You read from Ephesians 3, I think, where you just talked about like God's plan is to be glorified. God's plan is to be seen as good, and he does that through you. And when we talk about we talk about community and relationship.
Oh yeah, like just setting the stage for understanding that was simply said because many people don't believe they have an audience, but I just wanted them to see through scripture that God's aim is to put you on display. Like, even if you don't have an audience is coming. Like, the design of the gospel is for you to be on display before someone else. And so, like, that's so important, right? But
yeah, because I see that, like, if God's plan is to be seen as good, he's seen as real good when our collective lives, like in our collective lives, in our community, in our relationships.
I love what you just said.
Yeah,
you just said something. You just said something that's big. There's a difference in between God being known as good and being seen as good.
Yeah.
God's aim isn't to be known as good, to be seen as good.
Yeah.
And if he's going to be seen as good, it takes
through
it
relationship.
Through, right?
Yeah.
I mean, many people know he's good.
Yeah. He knows he's good.
But God doesn't want to be known as good. He wants to be seen as good.
Yeah.
And that takes it through. That takes a you. It takes an audience. Like that's
Yeah. Yes.
That's good. That's
good.
Good.
You guys are good. I appreciate you.
It's been a fun morning.
Thank you for being here with us.
Oh yeah.
And it's just the morning. We got the rest of the day to go.
Yes.
So, as you go through it, the weekend is coming. We're excited about the weekend. Sunday is coming. Either we see you here in the building or we catch you in the chat. As you go through this day, enjoying it, go through it knowing that God loves you. We love you. Keep attending and keep being most blessed. We'll see you soon.